Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 23rd of February. So coming to the first article. Now this being a Friday, this is the customary yes, no, it's complicated article. The question for today is that is the Supreme Court verdict on Cauvery fair? As I've mentioned before also, Cauvery issue is very important, but such kind of a question to directly appear in UPSC is doubtful, primarily because this is a controversial issue. So what we need to extract is the challenges that still exist with regards to the Cauvery dispute. So that is the relevance here. Now coming to the context, which is as usual, the Supreme Court judgment on Cauvery dispute. So that is something that is important. Now here you need to know in the background aspect that the Supreme Court has not made much changes than what was advocated by the 2007 tribunal judgment. The Supreme Court has only made a point that 14.75 TMC feet of water is what should be given additionally to Karnataka, and this has been taken from the share of Tamil Nadu. So except for this one change, no other major change to the 2007 judgment is what has been done by the Supreme Court. So that is something that you need to know. Another thing that is important is with regards to the figures here, these are the shares of each and every riparian state. So that is something that is vital from the background aspect. Now coming to the opinions that have been given, the first is with regards to the opinion yes, that it is right, the Supreme Court judgment is a fair judgment. Now in this regard, the first analysis is that both the states, that is Tamil Nadu as well as Karnataka, who were largely having the conflict, so it is that both these states have been benefited by this judgment. For example, Tamil Nadu has been given the right, has been acknowledged. Tamil Nadu had been demanding for a Cauvery management board, and this is something that the Supreme Court has agreed to. So that is something that is in the favor of Tamil Nadu. And 14.75 TMC feet of water is not something that is a large part of water that has been diverted to Karnataka. So it is not a huge share. So as a result of which, Tamil Nadu should be satisfied. Another thing with regards to Karnataka that is important is that Karnataka has not only been given this additional share, it has succeeded in getting the rights, the drinking rights of its city Bangalore acknowledged by the Supreme Court, and that is something that is the biggest achievement for Karnataka. So that is one thing that has been analyzed here, that if both the states have something to gain, then definitely it is a fair judgment. Another thing is with regards to the corrections made to the 2007 tribunal judgment. Now when the 2007 tribunal judgment had come, there were several criticisms against this judgment. For example, this judgment had ignored the rights of Bangalore. Now this judgment had then said that it is only 1/3 of the area of the Bangalore city which is in the Cauvery basin and 2/3 is outside it. So if it is only 1/3, then this judgment, the tribunal had noted that Bangalore cannot demand for water from the Cauvery basin. So as a result of which, the drinking rights of the citizens of Bengaluru was something that were not acknowledged. So this was one criticism. Another thing that was important is that Bangalore is a global city. You all know the importance of Bangalore. Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of India. So when such kind of a major city is involved, then some benefits to it should have been given. Some rights of that particular city should have been acknowledged, which was not done by the tribunal. So this was some negative aspects of the tribunal judgment which now have been corrected. So therefore this judgment is a valid one. Another thing is with regards to the 1924 agreement. Now here you need to understand that this conflict, this dispute over the sharing of Cauvery waters is age old. It is taking place from the time of the British era. Now here two agreements is what was signed. One was signed in the year 1892 and the other was in the year 1924. However, the issue was that Tamil Nadu at that point of time was the Madras presidency and Karnataka was under the Mysore kingdom. So Tamil Nadu being the Madras presidency was under the British rule, and it was believed that it is Tamil Nadu which is given favor over Karnataka. So there was a sense of historic injustice that Karnataka felt. And this is something that was represented, or it got a face in the 1924 agreement also. Now this agreement rather should have been annulled with independence itself, but that is something that did not happen. And this agreement was continuing. So this is something that the Supreme Court now has annulled, and the Supreme Court said that this agreement should have ended at a max by the year 1970. So this is something that is important, that these agreements is something that have been done away with. So that is why it is a fair enough judgment. Another thing which is important is with regards to the principle of equity. Now here, the Supreme Court has mooted this principle of equity with regards to sharing of river waters. Now previously what was thought by states is that if a particular state has a large part of a river flowing through it, that is a geographical location of a particular state would determine its share in the river water. So this is something that the Supreme Court has denied. It is said that the rivers are not some state entities, but rather they are a national entity, they are a national resource, and as a result of which the principle that is going to be followed is the principle of equity, which means that the rights of the citizen is going to be considered, and it is in this perspective that the rights of Bangalore have been acknowledged, the drinking rights of Bangalore city, despite the fact that two-thirds of the city is outside the Cauvery basin. So this is something that is vital for us. Another analysis which is important is with regards to the 10 TMC feet of groundwater which has been acknowledged in this judgment. Now this is something that the tribunal had not acknowledged, so this is a newer aspect which the Supreme Court judgment has brought, so that is why it is a good aspect. Now what it says is that in the Cauvery basin, there is approximately 10 TMC feet of groundwater which Tamil Nadu can use. So it is at this cost that the share of Tamil Nadu had been reduced, and 14.75 is what was given additionally to Karnataka. So you should know this thing. This is important. Another thing that the editorial here, the opinion under yes has discussed is some issues which the judgment has not addressed. For example, there is an issue that the Supreme Court did not take much of technical expertise in giving its judgment. Now here some reiteration can be given is that the Supreme Court did not take technical expertise is because the Supreme Court has not made many changes. Supreme Court largely relied on the judgment of the 2007 tribunal judgment, and it relied on the technical knowledge and the technical expertise that was present in the 2007 judgment itself. So it can be justified that it is for this reason that the Supreme Court has not gone in for any technical expertise this time. That is one issue. Another thing is that a deficit formula has still not been given. Now largely the conflict between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka assumes greater heights during the deficit years, so a formula should have been given for water sharing in the deficit years, but this is not done, though definitely water will be shared in the same proportion in the deficit years also, but a monthly release of water is something that has not been discussed upon, so that is one challenging issue. Another thing is that there is no clarity upon the construction of hydel projects on the river, so this is one issue which has not been addressed. For example, Karnataka is building some hydroelectric projects, and this can impact the flow of water in the river when it enters Tamil Nadu. So that is one issue which has been left unresolved. So those are some criticisms which have also been acknowledged in the yes argument. So this is in nutshell about the yes argument. Now coming next to the no argument, that no, the Supreme Court judgment is an unfair one. Now first and foremost argument here is that the supply side has not been increased. Now the issue is that in the 2007 judgment, the share of Tamil Nadu was higher. However, if the supply side has not increased, that is the water in the river has not increased, rather it has been decreasing because of erratic climate change, then how is it that the Supreme Court decided to cut the share of Tamil Nadu? This is something that is unethical. That has been argued in this particular opinion. Another thing is with regards to the Cauvery Management Board. Now definitely the Supreme Court has called for setting up a Cauvery Management Board, and it has even given a time limit of 6 weeks. But the issue here is that even previously Supreme Court has time and again called the central government to set up this management board, and the central government has not been doing it. Not only that, Karnataka has not been happy with the idea of setting up the Cauvery Management Board, and elections are due in Karnataka within a few months. So it is again being feared that the centre is going to jump this deadline, and it is not going to form the Cauvery Management Board. The Cauvery Management Board is the source for implementation of this judgment. So there is a question on whether or not the implementation will be done in a good way. So that is one analysis which has been drawn. Time and again it is seen that Karnataka has been reluctant in implementing the judgments in the right spirit. For example, Karnataka does not release water to Tamil Nadu at the onset of the monsoon. Rather, it waits to see the progress of the monsoon and the storage capacities. So this is something that has been raised here. That is, if this behavior by one state continues, then obviously this matter is not going to reach a finality, and time and again Tamil Nadu will again go to the Supreme Court. So what is important here is that a robust management board and implementation mechanism is what is set up. So that is one analysis. Another thing which has been analyzed is with regards to the ecological implications of this particular entire issue. Now what has happened here is that the approach here has been very myopic. It has been a very political issue, and as a result of which focus has not been on the river, rather it has only been on sharing of water, and the matter became too politicized. And this has resulted in severe degradation of the river. The river is a perennial river, but now the author here is saying that it is almost equivalent to a seasonal river. And there are huge adverse ecological implications for the deltaic and the coastal ecosystems of this river. Here you need to know that only 4 TMC feet of water is what the judgment has set apart for being allowed to flow into the sea. So compared to the share of these states, you can well understand that such a minuscule amount is being allowed to flow into the sea. So this is definitely going to impact the delta that this river forms and the ecosystem over there. So that is one important analysis which you need to know. This is also one challenge which the judgment has. So that is the relevance here. Now coming next to the complicated opinion. Now this is going to be the most important opinion for us because this is a holistic picture. Now the first aspect that has been analyzed is with regards to the good aspects of the judgment. Now definitely the judgment is a way ahead. You cannot deny that. For example, it has brought a newer focus on the groundwater as we discussed above also. Also the judgment calls for revamping the national water policy of 2012 to ensure better resource utilization of water. That is something that is a step ahead. Also the judgment has called for setting up of the Cauvery management board, which is good. Another very important aspect about the judgment is that this sharing quota has been fixed for 15 years. So if this is followed, then at least for 15 years there is going to be peace between these two states. So that is the benefit here. However, some climatic and ecological factors is what has indeed been ignored. For example, there is a change in the rainfall patterns. Also, rainwater harvesting is something that should have been looked into, but it has been ignored. Some catchment degradation is what is happening in the entire Cauvery basin, which has not been acknowledged. Some local water systems are deteriorating, which have again not been acknowledged. So these are some issues that have been raised here, that some aspects is definitely which have been ignored. So that is something that is important. Another thing with regards to Bangalore is something that is important. Now, in the above analysis, we had discussed that why ensuring drinking water rights to Bangalore is something that is important. But some analysis that has been given here is with regards to the criticism of this allocation of water to Bangalore. Now here you need to understand that firstly 2/3 is outside the Cauvery basin. Not only that, the Bangalore city is a powerful city. It is a city of the rich. So if these people also cannot manage their water properly, if in this city also, the government cannot invest in better utilization of water, then how can one expect that the government in rural areas is going to invest in water? So it is almost being equivalent to taking the share of Tamil Nadu to invest in this particular city, which is already a very prosperous city. That is the first analysis. Another thing is that already Bangalore has not been using its present resources only properly. The present resources are also being used suboptimally. So that is one thing that has been analyzed. Also, if we take into consideration the Bellandur Lake case, then we know that this Bellandur Lake in Bangalore is a burning lake. It shows the high level of pollution in the city. So in that context, this judgment of the Supreme Court to allow additional share to Bangalore is something that has been criticized. So that is one important analysis. Another thing is that this allocation of 10 TMC feet of groundwater to Tamil Nadu is something that is done by assessing the groundwater on ad hoc principles, and some deeper scientific and technical expertise is something that is not involved. So this is one criticism which is done. Another thing is with regards to the spillover effects that this judgment can have. For example, this judgment has increased the share of both Tamil Nadu because it has been given access to the groundwater, and also for Karnataka. So the spillover effect can happen that people might increase the water usage, and the sustainability of water resources is something that is going to be defeated. So that is one important analysis, that focus should have been on ensuring better water use practices in the citizens rather than giving them more water so that can be misused. So that is one analysis here. Another thing is that the focus is largely on the supply side, that is how much is the water in the Cauvery basin, rather than on the demand side management. Some reduction in demand is also that should be looked into. So that is one analysis which has been given. Some sewage treatment plants for recycle of water is something that can be looked into in this regard. So that is something that is vital here. Another thing is that the efficacy of this judgment indeed will depend upon its implementation, and which will depend upon the formation and working of the Cauvery Management Board. So that is the analysis here. Indeed, this is the balanced opinion which you need to replicate in your answers. So that is the relevance of this particular editorial. Coming to the next article, planning for electric mobility. Now, this is a very, very important topic. The context here is that the government is aiming to make India completely shift to electric vehicles till the year 2030. So, in this light, this editorial is what has been given here. Now, first and foremost, you need to know something about the background. Now, here, these are some analysis with regards to the WHO, the World Health Organization. Now, as per the WHO, as per one of WHO reports, there are premature deaths because of environmental pollution, and these deaths are to the tune of 6.5 million deaths annually. Premature deaths annually take place because of poor air quality or rising levels of pollution. And amongst these 6.5 million, 1.1 million are happening in India. So these are some figures which you should know. You should replicate them in your answers. It will give a good impression. So that is something that is important. Another thing that is important is with regards to the urban air quality, which is continuously deteriorating. This is also as per a WHO report. This report was report had come in the year 2014, and according to this report, out of 10 most polluted cities in the world, 4 were in India. And out of the 20 most polluted cities, India had 10 cities. So these are some figures which represent that how grave is the problem in India. So that is something that is important from the background aspect. Now coming to the issues, first and foremost issue is with regards to the worsening air quality. Now this is an undisputed fact in India that the air quality is day by day worsening, and this is largely attributed to the rising number of cars in the country and vehicular pollution. So that is one analysis, and as a result of this, if we shift to electric vehicles, there is going to be a stark change. So that is one analysis. Another thing is that shifting to electric vehicles will result in a large amount of economic savings. This is something that has been said by the Niti Aayog, so that becomes important here. The Niti Aayog has said that if India shifts to electric vehicles, then it is going to save approximately rupees 4 lakh crore. So you can see the twin benefits. One benefit is definitely environmental benefit on the health of the citizens and also economic savings. So that is going to be the benefit here. Another thing that has been analyzed is with regards to shifting from the internal combustion engine to the electric vehicles. Now this process of shifting from the internal combustion engine to electric vehicles is going to be a challenging process. It definitely is going to have some long-term benefits, but definitely in the present time, in the short term, it is going to face several challenges. So what are these challenges that this particular issue is going to face? And this is the most important aspect of our discussion in this particular editorial. The first challenge is with regards to coordination. Now this entire project, it is obvious, will require implementation both at the national level, at the state level, at the city level. So coordination at these 3 levels is something that becomes vital. Also, many ministries are going to be involved in this. For example, the Transportation Ministry, the Housing Ministry, the Urban Development Ministry, the Renewable Energy Ministry, Industry Ministry. So different ministries and institutions are going to get involved. So there will be a challenge of coordination is something that is vital between all these institutions as well as between the national, state and city level. So that is something that is important here. So the second challenge is with regards to the best mode which India should follow. Now different models can be adopted for going into the electric vehicle era. For example, in China, the model that was followed was with regards to the buses. China focused on its public transport and it introduced electric vehicles, especially with regards to the buses in China. For example, last year, approximately 80,000 new electric buses is what came onto Chinese roads. So that was the policy that China had followed. Another example is what has been given of Netherlands. Netherlands followed a charging infrastructure. It focused more upon having electric charging stations present across the country. So that is the model that Netherlands has followed. Vis-a-vis India is concerned, India should follow a model. A model has been suggested for India. India's model should be focused primarily on the two-wheelers as well as the auto rickshaws. Now, why is this model recommended for India? Now, this model primarily has been recommended for India because India is the largest manufacturer of two-wheelers as well as auto rickshaws. These are also highly used sources of transport. So this can be a win-win strategy that for starting these two areas can be focused on. So that is something that you need to know. Another issue is with regards to the battery conundrum. Now this battery, that is the lithium ion battery, you need to know this is something that India does not manufacture. So for this, India will have to either depend upon the imports or India should focus on making these batteries within the country and in this regard, what will come into picture is the Make in India project. So this is something that is going to be important. The Make in India scheme should be aligned with this idea of electric vehicles. This will be a win-win situation for both. So that is one analysis which has been given. Another thing that is important is with regards to the charging infrastructure. Now here you need to know that there is no one particular global standard for a global infrastructure. Rather, every country has its own infrastructure. So India needs to innovate in this regard. It needs to adopt the best infrastructure, charging infrastructure that is possible. And for this, what is required is some innovative practices, some skill is what is required for the country. So that is one challenge that needs to be met. So that is something that is important. Another issue is with regards to jobs and economic impacts. Now, as I've told you, it is going to result in some economic benefits. It is going to result in economic savings. Another issue is with regards to the jobs that this sector can create. So that is going to be an achievement here. But what is important is that these required skills is what is given to the population. So that if that issue is met, then definitely it can result in a sooner realization of this goal of electrification of all the vehicles till 2030. So that is what is analyzed here. Now, something that you need to know in the way ahead aspect is that what is important is that at present the citizens have a lot of apprehensions with regards to this aim of the government. So what is needed is that these apprehensions are removed and more awareness about the benefits of this scheme is what is created. Also, some other aspects is what has been analyzed in the way ahead. For example, what is needed is a roadmap, some timelines, some adequate processes, well-researched impact studies, some bold initiatives and robust investments in technological research to turn this dream of electric vehicles into a reality. All of this way ahead is given here. So that is the relevance of this entire editorial. A direct question can be expected in UPSC. So that is the relevance. Now, coming to the third article, saving lives, the context here is that the UNICEF, that is the United Nations Children's Fund, has released its latest report, that is Every Child Alive. And this is a report on the neonatal mortality. Now, what you understand by neonatal mortality is that is the number of babies dying in their first month for every 1,000 live births. So that is what is going to comprise of neonatal mortality. This report is an important report. As per this report, India's ranking is one thing that you should know. India has ranked 12th worst amongst the 52 lower middle income nations, which means that the figure that is important is that the neonatal mortality rate in India is that approximately 25.4 deaths occur per 1,000 live births. So this is one figure that you need to know. And India has ranked 31st in the highest newborn mortality rate. So indeed, it is a matter of shame for the country. The report has not been in the favor of India. It has shown some chilling effects this report has had. So that is something that is important. Now, coming to the issues which are important here. First is that India has been ranked below its neighbors also. These neighbors include Sri Lanka, it includes Bhutan, it includes Nepal. So you can see that these smaller countries also have performed better than India, which is a matter of immense shame for India. So that is one important analysis. Now, something that you should also know is that the best performer has been Japan, followed by Iceland and Singapore. So that is something that is not important, but just for some general knowledge, you should know that. Another thing is that there is a delinking of results with the financial resources in this particular report. What often happens is that countries like India who are performing bad, they often say that it is largely because they have a constraint of financial resources. But it is in this report that it has been highlighted that the results are not dependent upon financial resources. So what is important here is that the will is what is important. The intent of the government is what is important. And this becomes the most important point for our analysis. That even if financial resources are less, but the government is willing to take up good steps, then definitely the figures could have been improved. So that is important here. For example, this can be proved from the case of Sri Lanka, Ukraine and US. Now, Sri Lanka and Ukraine compared to US are very small countries, and both these countries have a figure of 5 deaths per 1,000 live births. Whereas US has a figure of 3.7 deaths per 1,000 live births. So you can see that there is not much of a difference between these two figures despite the huge difference in economy. So if this is achievable here, then definitely even India should look into its real problem, which is a lack of intent and political will. So that is something that is important. Another thing is that in terms of these figures and these rankings, the clear picture is something that does not emerge. If you take in the context of the absolute figures, then you will get a better clarity that approximately 6,40,000 babies have died in the year 2016. So this is a huge number. It is the largest in the entire world. So when you will see like this, then you will analyze that how grave the problem is in India. So that is something that is important. Now coming to the causes for these neonatal mortality in India, the first cause is that of premature births which take place, and as a result of which it results in mortality of these babies who are born. Another thing that is important is that often a number of children are dying because of asphyxia during delivery. So it is in these causes only that some solutions can be sought. For example, to curb premature birth, what is important is that the focus is on the mother and the mother's health, which has been ignored here. And for asphyxia, which means that a child dies of suffocation, his breathing is something that is not managed well during delivery. So to control this issue, what is important is that focus should be on institutional deliveries so that a doctor is present. So that is something that is going to come in the solution aspect. A case of Janani Suraksha Yojana is what has been mooted here. It is said that the scheme is a scheme for pregnant mothers. Some benefits is what these mothers are eligible to. Some money is what is given to these mothers during their pregnancy term. So it is the scheme which should be expanded, but some implementation issues with regards to the scheme is something that you need to understand. Often what happens is that this money that is to be credited to the bank accounts of these pregnant women is something that is delayed. Now this money is largely given to these women so that they are not forced or compelled to work even when they are pregnant, and they can take rest. But if this money is not going to be credited to their accounts in a timely manner, then indeed the purpose of this entire scheme is going to get defeated, because even if they are getting the money that they were supposed to get after a few months, they will work during the time they were pregnant, and as a result of which the health of the mother and child is in danger. So that is the implementation ground level issue with regards to this scheme. So you should have such kind of knowledge also. Another thing is with regards to the norms to be maintained in the hospital. Now this editorial has said that there is a list of approximately 10 critical products which every hospital should have, and these include simple things like a blanket or antiseptic or antibiotic. And these 10 critical products is that every hospital should have. It is often seen in India that the hospitals are lacking basic amenities, as a result of which often there is a higher rate of neonatal mortality. So that is one analysis here. Another thing which has been analyzed is that besides all these steps, some other factors like female literacy is the key to reducing neonatal mortality, because if there is female literacy, then the health seeking behavior of women is going to increase, and as a result of which this mortality can be checked. So that is one analysis. Another thing which is very, very important, that some states in India like Kerala and Tamil Nadu have performed much better. They have a rate of 15 deaths per 1,000, and they are doing it in the same political setup of India. So definitely these states have something to teach the rest of the states in the country. So that is an analysis which is important here. Indeed, this topic is going to be very, very important from General Studies paper 1 social issues point of view. So that is the relevance here. Now coming to the next article, talk like a South Asian. Now this article is not a very important one, primarily because this is an outright criticism of government, and such kind of extreme criticism is not going to be welcomed in UPSC. So that is why there is not much to be extracted from this article. Some points is what are however relevant, so I shall be limiting my discussion to those points only. The context is with regards to the neighborhood policy of India. This topic in itself is very, very important. Time and again we are seeing that editorials are coming with regards to the South Asian politics or neighborhood politics. So that is something that becomes important for us. And this is primarily in the context of Maldives, the constitutional and political crisis in Maldives. In that case, the role of India is something that has been analyzed. Now, the first issue is with regards to an excessive focus on China and Pakistan. Now, here the editorial discusses that in the entire South Asian region, India is largely focusing, or for that matter, in all its neighbors, India is largely focused on two neighbors, that is China and Pakistan. And at the cost of these two neighbors, India has ignored all its other South Asian neighbors, and this is a cause of concern. This is resulting that India is losing its influence in other countries. That is one analysis. Other issue is with regards to the British legacy. This we've discussed in the past also, that after the British left Indian subcontinent, India almost took up the role of a big brother. It considered itself as the legitimate heir of the British policy, and it had this big brother attitude towards all the smaller nations, which was unacceptable to these nations. Especially it is seen in the case of Nepal. So that is one attitude, that is one policy shift that India should have with vis-a-vis its neighbors. Another thing that is important is with regards to the new South Asian policy, that is is warranted. Now here the author is saying that this old policies that India has had towards the South Asian countries have not resulted in much benefits for India. So a new policy which is more encompassing, which is more acknowledging of the legitimate rights of the other countries is something that is warranted. So that is one analysis. Another thing is with regards to the opportunities to learn from each country. Now this is something that we should follow. India should focus on that each smaller country in the South Asian region has something to teach India. An example is what has been given of the Okchi cyclone. Now what happened during the cyclone is that it was said that because the issue of the cyclone was something that was being dealt by a central government which was largely a landlocked government. It was a government located in Delhi. So the real ground level problems of the people was something that the government was unable to understand. So in this regard, expertise from other neighboring countries like Maldives, which is an island country, can be of help to India. So that is one analysis which has been given here. Now another analysis is with regards to the South Asian University. This is going to be the most important point of this editorial, and this is the point which necessarily you should replicate in your answers. Now, India had set up this idea of South Asian University. This university was to focus on the culture and knowledge of entire South Asia. It was to develop a theory on the South Asian diversity and differences. It was to ensure a creative sense of regionalism in this particular area. So this was indeed a welcome idea. It was a good idea, and this is something that India should encourage more. At present, the university is not meeting its required mandate. So the focus of the government is that the idea, the spirit with which this university was set up should be reached. So that is what is important here. Another thing that is important is that there is a need for a collective civil society and social movement in this entire region. Now, for example, we are seeing this constitutional crisis has emerged in Maldives. But how many of us are bothered about this issue in Maldives, considering the fact that that is one of our neighboring countries? Not only in the case of Maldives, in Myanmar there is a Rohingya issue. It does not impact the entire conscience of this region if there is a problem in one particular country, and this is a major problem. This entire region should have a collective spirit. It should have a collective civil society, that if a wrong is done in any one country, then the civil society in the other countries should also participate. This spirit is something that is lacking, and if a collective civil society is what is built in all these countries, then definitely it is going to result in huge prosperity to this region. So that is the analysis here. These are some important points which we can replicate, specifically these 2 points. So that is the relevance. Indeed, neighborhood policy is going to be important for this year because we are seeing repeated discussions on this. So coming to the next article. Now this article in particular is an article on the blockchain technology. In the past also I have discussed a lot on the blockchain technology, but now what is being important is this aspect, that how blockchain technology can be important for India and India's banking sector. For example, with regards to the PNB scam, the State Bank of India has said that if the PNB was using a blockchain technology, the scam would not have happened. So this topic has become very important. Now, today's discussion will not allow me to discuss this topic in detail. So I will make a separate video on blockchain technology and all the nuances of this technology, its relevance for India, because this topic is definitely one expected topic for 2018, even in the prelims as well as in the mains. So that is the importance. So definitely please watch out for our video that will come on blockchain technology. So based on today's discussion, please try and attempt these questions within a word limit of 150 words. So that's all for today, and thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow.